Thank you, Malcolm, and welcome everybody to the Great Debate. It's been an era of great debates, and I think it'll continue in the political arena anyway for the following year. So it is most appropriate in the year of the Girl Guide that we have our Girl Guides here on either side of us that actually are going to participate. The Australian Guides of today under 30 are more resourceful than their English Guides under 30 of 1910.
Good evening. I would like to introduce the team for the affirmative who are going to persuade you that the Australian Guides of today under 30 are more resourceful than the English Guides under 30 of 1910, and I think I've just shown my resourcefulness. My name is Margaret Duggan, and I will be demonstrating how the Guides of today are more resourceful because of the educational opportunities and the girls' ability to think outside the square, because of the enormous changes in technology and communication, and also the physical activities available to girls today. Our second speaker, Lynn Price, will be expanding on this by looking at examples of Guides resourcefulness Australia-wide. And our third speaker, Anne Brown, will be giving further examples of the resourcefulness of today's Guides as compared with the Guides of 1910, based on the annual report which has been presented to us tonight. Due to the resourcefulness of today's Guides, you can anticipate that we will speak beyond this brief synopsis. As a start, I would like to expound on what the word resourceful means. The Encarta Dictionary definition is full of initiative and good at problem solving. Macquarie says skillful in overcoming difficulties, and Oxford mentions able to deal promptly and effectively with difficulties. Societal views of women and the opportunities that are available to them are vastly different today than they were 100 years ago. The very society that we live in supports and encourages our girls to use their initiative and exercise their problem-solving skills. They see their mothers and female relatives leading active, interesting lives with freedom to express their opinions and to follow their dreams. Today's Guides are encouraged by our education system to think outside the box and be resourceful. An example of using their initiative is the fact that they can design their own guide pages. Gone is the structure and rigid expectation of previous years. The girls set their own challenges using their own interpretation and imagination. The end result is cause for celebration and a sense of fulfilment. An interesting example of resourcefulness comes from the Mayfield unit in Launceston, where the Guides decided to take part in the Clean Up Australia Day. They discovered an area of their school ground which was obviously being used for illegal dumping of unwanted school lunches, sweet wrappers, etc., and of their own volition composed a letter to their school principal outlining their suggestions for improvements. From their ideas, there is now a brick capping on the wall and the area stays clean. Guides of today are encouraged to act upon and speak out for worthwhile issues. Advocacy is the name of the game. The next point to consider is the use of technology. Communication for today's Guides is easy, quick and effective. Time is a precious commodity for girls who are often faced with huge decisions, particularly the older girls, whether to be a part or a full-time student, which university course to study, and also how to fit in a part-time job. They also manage to fit guiding in, which shows their resourcefulness. For Guides, networking with their peers using Facebook or SMS enables them to organise activities in their girl-directed programs. Typical questions between the girls using their mobiles are, who's taking the chocolate to camp? What are you wearing for the bike ride? What time to meet at Kangas? From solving very small to very large problems, resourceful Guides are using technology. They SMS their leaders when they're going to be absent from a unit meeting. A simple courtesy, but using their initiative. Technology also allows Guides to research and gain a greater understanding of issues which they can bring to their programs. An example of this is the Kingborough Guides Climate Change Challenge, which, I may say, I discovered resourcefully using the Guides Tasmania website. Lastly, Guides of 2010 are so physically active. They're not constrained by rigid conventions or gender-based negativity. Nobody says, you can't do that, you're a girl. Guides of today revel in abseiling, kayaking and orienteering, to name but a few adventurous activities. And it goes without saying that all these demand initiative and problem-solving skills. I'm always convinced of the resourcefulness of Guides when I see them manage to find a place halfway down the regatta queue instead of going to the end. The regatta is also the best place in the world for finding an available boy. Girl meets boy in record time is nothing short of miraculous. Problem solving and initiative at its very best. The resourcefulness of Guides of 2010 enables them to meet and embrace our mission statement of allowing girls and young women to grow into confident, self-respecting community members.
Resourcefulness out of necessity. Welcome everyone, we are the negative team and will be arguing that the Guides of today are not more resourceful than the Guides of 1910. We accept the affirmative team's definition. Before I continue, I would just like to clarify that we are not saying the Guides of today are less intelligent, good or skillful. We're not making a value judgment, we are just saying that they are less resourceful. I, as the first speaker, will be talking about the availability of resources and reliability. My second speaker, Corinne, will be talking about personal responsibility and rules and restrictions. And my third speaker, Annabelle, will sum up our case and leave you in no doubt that the Guides of today are not as resourceful as the Guides of 1910. Before I begin my team's case, I will now point out the more obvious flaws in the affirmative team's case. The affirmative team said that initiative was the same thing as being resourceful. As you should know, it is not. And with physical activities today, it's more resourceful, but it's a bit more easy. And just because someone encourages you to be resourceful does not mean that you will be. One of the ways that the Guides of 1910 were more resourceful is to do with the availability of resources. Because back then, they didn't have all the fancy gadgets we take for granted, like phones and email and even washing machines. An example of this is when it comes to first aid. Back then, they couldn't just ring for an ambulance. They had to deal with it themselves. And even today, when you're doing something to do with first aid and learning about it, they don't teach you to be resourceful. They just tell you, oh, keep them alive, keep them breathing, and ring for an ambulance. And so today, there is less need to be resourceful. Today, we have what you could know as a throwaway society. If it's broken, it goes in the bin. And back in 1910, you simply just couldn't do this because of the lack of money, and even if your family did have enough money, well, there'd be more important things to buy. And so if you ripped your uniform, for example, you would have to fix it yourself, doing more for less, which is resourcefulness out of necessity. This is also to do with guiding resources, or that old junk that's kicking around your guide hole, well, it may just come in useful. But back in 1910, they didn't have all this stuff kicking around, so they had to make do with what they had. Another way to show resourcefulness is also to do with reliability. And if you say you do something, you do it. Such as if you agree to meet your friend in town and you don't, well, today you could just email them or send them a text and say, sorry, I forgot, or sorry, I'm sick. But you couldn't have done that in 1910 because if you had done that, you would have caught a nationwide panic. And this is also linked into forward planning, and as the affirmative team said, you should be resourceful by telling your leader something and using a call. But back then, you would have to plan beforehand, saying, oh girls, next week, Guides is going to be at a later time. And if you thought to tell them that, well, you'd have a bit of a problem. I will now tell you a very interesting story about some guides in the Launceston and how they used their resourcefulness. Now, these girls, they wanted to go on a camp, but their mothers weren't going to let them because they said, you need your milk every day, and if you take milk on camp, it's going to go off and then you'll get sick, and that's not good. And so the girls, in a wonderful show of resourcefulness, decided to take a cow on camp with them, enabling them to have fresh milk every day. The Guides of 1910 were more resourceful because they had to be. Resourcefulness out of necessity. Thank you.